Greetings, family. This is Nunez with the H20 Network. I'm sitting with a good friend of mine, and if you've listened to the H20 Network for a long time, you know who Ryan Hurd is. He is the founder at Dream Studies. He's an author. He has many books. He just came out with Dream Like a Boss 1, and Dream Like a Boss 2 is coming out. He has a lot of writings that are coming out. We're going to discuss this, but we're going to discuss dreams and all about these new books and projects that are coming up. Welcome to the H20 Network, Ryan. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me, Dia. It's so good to be back in your company again.
I love speaking with you, and I have to say, and to you and to the audience, you, besides Anthony Peake and Robert Moss and Robert Bruce, you are one of my favorite dream researchers.
That's good company.
And authors, because everyone has a theory. However, one of the things that I love about you and many other favorites on my list is that you actually are a part of the theory. You test the theory out. You not only research dreams and talk about dreams, but you're a dreamer, a very intense dreamer yourself. And to me, that adds a different level of credibility to your work. And to me, that's very, very important. It's one thing to talk about something. There's a whole different thing to talk about it and to actually experience. So thank you for everything that you've given to us thus far.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I like to think of myself as a pragmatist more than anything. And when I'm in my educational role with dream studies and consciousness studies, I'm trying to find practical solutions for people. And I love the research. I love the theory, but at the end of the day or the beginning of the night or however you want to say it, it's really, can we use this information? Can it better our lives? Can it better our communities and our world? So that's always what I come back to is how can we use this?
Absolutely. And I'm making an assumption, but I perceive that this is why you've written Dream Like a Boss 1 and Dream Like a Boss 2 is coming out. It's like a manual, and it's very different than other dream books that I've encountered. What is your perception on difference? How are these books different for you?
Well, really what these ebooks do, and I am eventually going to squish them together and publish them as a hardback book together. But they marry dream research with dream work. So working with your dreams, your own dreams, and with people, your community's dreams and your family's dreams, but also looking at the contemporary research that's come out that is giving kind of credence to these concepts. And there's not really anyone who's really kind of doing that in the dream studies space. And it's not so much that I started doing it because this is what I was blogging about as I was learning, as I was going along, finishing up my master's degree. I was trying to write this stuff down so I didn't forget it. And that's how my blog, dreamstudies.org, really got started, was just kind of getting it going. And since then, it's just, it's just been a kind of a trip. But yeah, Dream Studies, Dream Like a Boss, book 1 is really about sleep basics. It's about how to get a good night's sleep, but also how to optimize your sleep for dreaming well, for remembering more dreams, and just sort of setting up I call a secure container, like a family environment for having a good dreaming relationship with, your whole scene, your whole household. There's lots of methods and stuff that I discuss, and a lot of them are really old and ancient. I like to kind of marry also the shamanic, the old school, the ancient stuff with the scientific stuff, because there's just a lot of things that were relevant, 4,000 years ago that are still relevant today. And some of these methods really are that old. It was just kind of shocking and amazing. And so that's what book 1 is about, is really kind of just getting your dream life going. Everything from dream tech, the different masks and stuff that's out there, to supplements, to how to set up your bedroom so you get better sleep.
You are such a dream shaman, honey. That is fabulous. And I say that because I've read other dream books, and you get right to the point, which is fine. However, your environment, your consciousness, the way that you do things, your relationships within that environment is so a part of the dream time, what you're putting into your body. And no one really ever addresses that. They sort of kind of skim over it, but they don't really address it in the awesomeness that you do. And I really, really love that. When I say that this book is a manual, it really is a manual to get good sleep, first of all, so you can dream. If you don't have good sleep, you can't dream and do all the cool things that are percolating in the dream time.
Yeah, exactly. It's got to be sustainable. And especially when people are into more advanced topics like lucid dreaming, consciousness in the dream state, you really have to have the basics down. You have to know the rules before you can break them. And with lucid dreaming, you do a lot of things like you disturb your sleep in the middle of the night, for instance, like middle of the night meditation, and different kinds of reality checks and, consciousness practices. All of that can be really just irritating and ineffective if you don't actually have a sustainable sleep life to begin with. If if you're sleep deprived, for instance, you're really going to have trouble getting the REM sleep, the dreaming sleep, when you're expecting it, and you'll always be playing catch up, and that's tough. So and the thing about sleep health is that it's invisible. Our society doesn't reward us for sleeping. It makes fun of people who sleep, who get enough sleep. It's totally culturally enforced that we, are kind of macho about not getting enough sleep. And so it's tough. But the thing that I've really learned is that everyone has their own relationship to sleep, and there's no perfect amount. You've really got to figure out what works for you. Because it might be you're one of those people, that only needs 5 hours a night. That's only 2% of the population, but maybe that's you, and awesome. But the rest of us who try to do that, we're sleep deprived, and we're addicted to caffeine, and we're wrecking our weekends just trying to catch up, and we'll never catch up. And so I bring all that kind of stuff up just to say, hey, this is the foundation, and once we even know where we are, then we can start building up our dream castles, I guess.
No, you're absolutely right. And I don't mean to be conspiracy theorist, but I analyze everything. I always tell people, don't give me something to read and to really break apart, because then I analyze it and really try to look at it from a deeper perspective. It's fascinating how in America, the pharmaceutical industry makes tons and tons of money off the deprivation of sleep. And from my perspective, if you look deeper, it's almost like a conspiracy, because the dream time to me in my life is very much important. I've gotten tons of information in the dream time about the real. So is my husband, because he's a very deep dreamer and has gotten tons of ancestral information. It's almost like they're socializing you and programming you to be such a worker bee that you miss this spiritual aspect of reality that can enrich your aspect of life. What do you perceive about that?
No, I'm right with you. And I mean, as for the conspiracy, I think, everybody's in on it. I mean, the pharmaceutical, industry for sure profits for us being sleepless, but so does Starbucks.
Indeed.
It's really across the board, and it's really there are I'd say some companies that are waking up to the fact that there's a lot of research out there that says, hey, if your workers actually are allowed to take a nap during the day, or don't have to check their email at 2 a.m, they're more productive, they're more creative, they do more with their time. And so there are some pretty forward-thinking corporations out there that are, really kind of beginning to teach sleep health, and even having, like Apple, for instance, has nap rooms on their campus in California. And I would love to see more of that, the siesta culture come back, to American corporate life. But I think we're a long way off from that, So yeah, I think it's an open conspiracy, for sure. And I think it's just kind of, that's the money talking. It's go, go, go. Every day is exactly the same. We live in an industrial mind space. It absolutely does not care about our well-being or much to say less our spiritual health, and that's really what we're missing out on is because nighttime, when you look at it from a spiritual perspective, nighttime is the time to check in. And in our culture, it's the time to check out. And that's unfortunate. And that's what I'm kind of hoping to help change. We really want to see more of the ability and the flexibility in our lives and our social calendars to be able to stay up late sometimes or to wake up in the middle of the night and engage in activities and not feel bad about it, not feel like we're insomniacs. The natural sleep pattern is not the same every day. It's just not. And for different people, it's never, standard. And some people just can't get up, at 7 in the morning. It's just not right for them from a circadian or a biological perspective. And, it's incredible really when you look at the institutionalization of sleep debt. It really is, totally hardwired into the financial constraints of our society.
What do you think are some benefits of dreaming besides, we just talked about the spiritual aspect? What are some other benefits that you perceive with the element of dreaming? I mean, we know that with sleep, because sleep obviously is connected to dreaming, it helps with your cognitive abilities, helping you be more alert and more aware. But on the other side of reality, what are some of those benefits for humanity?
Well, there's a lot of ways to answer this, right? And I can start with the research perspective, which is that it's a double mystery. There's not a universal theory that, for instance, that scientists all agree on about why we dream, what's the function of dreaming. And part of that is because we don't understand completely the function of sleep. I mean, we know we need sleep, but we're just beginning to figure out why we need sleep. And I mean, honestly, in the last 10 years, we've discovered a lot of things that are kind of beginning to edge around what sleep does for us in terms of how exactly it's restorative on like a cellular level, and in the brain and what it's doing. But we still really don't know. But we know that if we don't get enough, sleep, and if we don't dream, if we're actually prevented from dreaming, that we'll start to dream when we're awake. And so it appears that it's a biological imperative to get dreaming sleep, REM sleep. So it seems to be pretty important. From the research perspective, I think some of the most exciting ideas about why we dream, or at least what it's doing, whether or not this is why it evolved, but what it's doing is it's consolidating memories. It's helping kind of integrate. Another way of saying this is it's integrating our personal mythology, our past, with the experiences that are coming in today and making sense of those, role playing, those kind of things. And so it's a workshop for creativity, at the very basic. And, some people still argue that dreams don't have meaning, but it's really not. The evidence just, really is in the opposite camp these days. There's been a lot of qualitative and quantitative work done that shows that dreams have meaning, on the cognitive level as an experience in itself. It's just like thinking has meaning, right? Because it is the dreaming mind is the creative mind. It's just a little bit of an altered state. It's a little different from waking life, but that doesn't mean that every dream is necessarily, a message from your higher self or something like that. Just kind of like every thought you have isn't necessarily the most important thought in the universe. And so that's what I think where it gets interesting is like kind of seeing how the cream rises to the top with dreams, and which dreams do we decide to pay attention to, and which ones do we think are important. And that's a very personal preference. But once you decide that dreams are important, and once you decide that you want more of a certain kind of dreams, very quickly the dreams will start coming back into your life. It's like you have to give an invitation to them. And once you do that, the door opens. And it's pretty incredible. And it happens very quickly, too.
It does. It is incredible. And I've heard people say we're day walking as we're awake and we're night walking as we're asleep. Two different worlds laying on top of each other. And from my perception, we're time travelers. We just don't know it. We do it when we're day walking.
Absolutely.
When we think of the past, when we think of the future to a certain extent. When we're sleeping, we travel. I can't even comprehend where. Inner worlds, outer worlds, universe. If you look at the science of things, and there is science on this, we are a replication of what we deem to be out there in nature. So we're time travelers from my perspective, and even though we may perceive a dream being mundane, it is useful in some way, shape, or form that gives us information about ourselves, about our outer world or relationships and how we fix them. Man, I have so many questions to ask you. We talked about interpretation because this is important. A lot of people are like, oh, I have a dream and let me go to a dream book or things of this nature. What is your opinion? You have a very strong opinion about this, and I think it's very important for you to tell the people about interpreting dreams.
Right. Well, with interpreting dreams is tough for me. And in fact, when people write to me through my website and they ask me to interpret their dream, I often tell them that I don't have enough information, and it's just it's not enough to have a text of a dream to know what's going on, because a dream doesn't come out of thin air. It comes out of somebody's life experience, and that, it's very kind of what's going on in your life. It has a very big piece of why a certain dream might come up. And so you really need to have an interview and work a dream in a private, setting for, an hour or more to kind of to flesh out where this person is coming from and why this imagery is coming to them and why they're having these experiences. So I don't really do flat off dream interpretations, which means I'll never get on Ellen, and I'm actually fine with that, because I think it's important that we say, hey, dreams are complex. And, and even Carl Jung, the master dream psychologist, he would say, I don't know what this dream is whenever he started a session with his client, because theories get in our way. Theories blind us, I think, to a true perception of the moment of when somebody is telling us a story, because a dream is unique. It's a unique human moment. And when you have a dream, it's yours. And it absolutely is a beautiful moment that nobody else has ever had it before, no matter if it is a pattern that we recognize. There's elements to it that are unique. And so that's always my thing. I always start with that. Dream interpretation books, I'm not saying to not use them or to run away from them. I wouldn't say that. But what dream interpretation books do is they tend to live at a certain level of interpretation, and it's a cultural level. And so it can give you the significance of a symbol or a situation from a cultural perspective, which sometimes is accurate. But the thing about, the human mind, which is so fascinating to me, is that we routinely will take a symbol or an image and we'll invert it for our personal life. And so a rose for me can mean something else, than it means to you, because of something that happened in my own life, or, my own peculiar, relationship with roses. So you never can just crack open a book and say, oh, this says this dream is about I'm going to be rich or whatever. I would just say, no, look at the dream book and say, that's an interesting perspective, but then go through some other ways of looking at dreams. And some of them, number one is just writing the dream down, talking the dream out with some people who are around you, that care about you and who aren't going to say, oh, please don't tell me your dream, that's so boring. I mean, you need to obviously pick, these people with care, and the situation has to be right. It's got to be something that you take seriously. It's always playful, but it has to have at least a container where someone's not going to blow you off. Oh my God, don't tell me your boring dream again. And so once you've got that, and someone who's a good listener, they can start reflecting back to you. And this is what's kind of interesting is that there's actually been this huge movement in dream work in the last 30 years, and it's been in the United States and also in the UK, but largely it's come out of California, about how people can work with their dreams without using a psychologist or a psychiatrist, because so many of these ordinary dreams really can be played with and looked at, and you can develop meaning for them without that kind of training. Because to be honest, psychiatrists aren't trained in dreams anymore, and very few dream psychologists are either. It's really something that they have to pursue kind of on their own. It's not in the formal, training anymore. And so someone who is well versed in mythology might actually be a better dream partner than a licensed, counselor. And it just depends on, on that person's perspective of working with dreams. And so with the movement, the contemporary dream movement's done in the last 30 years, it's made it kind of more acceptable, so people can say, hey, we can work with our dreams. We don't need to work with, a white coat or, to have it come on down from the priesthood to tell us what our dream is. We figure out what our dreams mean together. And the last piece of that is that the dream belongs to the dreamer. The dream is your own experience, and how you tell it. You can tell it and give it out to the world, but you always take it back in. And if people give you projections or tell you what they think it means, and if it doesn't resonate, then you don't have to listen to that. No one can ever tell you what your dream is. So that's just some of the principles that I abide by. And part of these come through my work with the International Association with the Study of Dreams. And some of that is with my training with a couple of dream workers, especially Jeremy Taylor, who's really a wonderful guy. And you should get him on your show sometime. He's great. And he's got a number of books out that I would recommend too.
Well, tell him to come on over. We're open to that. All this information about consciousness, we're still trying to figure it out. That we're all in the boat together trying to figure this thing out. And you just said at the beginning of the show, it's about checking in. So that makes so much sense. How could some outside source tell you about the inner universe of yourself? You said it's checking in. And as, like I say, Dia, I have many different identities in which I identify with, cultural archetypes that are related to me, that I can only figure out and explain. But sometimes it's very hard for people to really get this. I think doing the work, you really have to do the work. It's about meditation, writing things down on a repetitive level, because I always say dreams are spirit time to me. So spirit time never works on linear time. I've had dreams where it's taken me a year or two to really figure out what it means. Like I'll have a synchronicity out in the world that relates to the dream that I had. And speaking about that, how have you seen people talk about, or have you experienced where you've had dreams and there's like a synchronicity that happens in the real world that sort of kind of connects to that? Is there a connection to the outside world and the dream world that you've experienced and that people talk about?
Oh yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And it's funny because you can talk about it on that level, but it's even supported at the research level too. And the theory is oh my gosh, now I'm forgetting the name of the theory. But listen, what it's about is continuity. It's the continuity theory of dreaming, and the idea is that waking life and dream life, it's the same creative mind. So the things you think about, the things that are most important to you, the relationships, your habits, your behaviors, your likes and dislikes, the people that you're around the most, those things get carried over into the dream world. And so you'll see a continuity in dream content from carried over from waking life. And that is by and far the largest predictor of dream content. We talked about how dreams are so crazy, so bizarre, and they do have really bizarre elements that pop out of nowhere. But by and large, they're pretty routine, and they reflect what we really do think about things and really do think about situations. And that's pretty cool. So when you start you start recording your dreams, writing them down, looking at them, and then you go out the next day and then something happens that either reminds you of the dream, or it's even an element, an image from the dream that you notice in waking life for the first time, and you make a connection. That's wonderful. That is the synchronicity that really shows that continuity. But when you make that connection in waking life, then it's so cool, because then it's a feedback loop. Then that affects your dreams the next night, or maybe the week after that, or however long it takes for that element to come up again. But you're creating a flow between dream thinking and wake thinking. And the more conscious you are in waking life about your dreamy thoughts, the more conscious you can become of your dreamy thoughts when you're dreaming too. And so it's a really cool thing, that continuity. And absolutely, especially because, I think the easiest way for people who want to get into dream work or get into understanding their dreams is, I would say, to start with the repetitive dreams, the ones that you've had many times before. The one that you had last night, that you had the week before, or maybe you have it 6 times a year, or you've had it your entire life, when you're stressed out the night before, whatever, something stressful is happening. So those dreams are really fun to work, because you can look at how they change over time, and you can sort of see how you're playing a role in this dream, and you see how the role might change as you get older, or it doesn't, or maybe you're sort of stuck in the role and you need to change, and you need to make a change. But anyway, the repetitive dreams really are dynamic in that way. Like, for instance, I still dream about high school. I'm pushing 40, but honestly, I dreamt about being in my underwear in the cafeteria about 2 weeks ago. Still having these dreams. And the question is, why do we have these repetitive dreams from our early, first half of life? And there's not really a good answer to that, except that I think that we pin down sort of the elements of our mythology in the first, say, 15 or 18 years. And we just kind of, the relationships that are most important to us, they kind of become, almost archetypal signposts for particular relationships. And even if that person's not in your life anymore, they'll show up 30 years later. It doesn't mean you're obsessed with that particular person. It means that they're standing in for some kind of energy that's being awakened in waking life. At least that's some of the time the way that I see it. And so you can really begin to play with, some of that stuff.
That's interesting you say that, because a couple of weeks ago I had a dream about an individual that's long gone. And I noticed that in my waking life, that whenever I do something that's an affront to my spirit, downgrade myself with confidence and so on and so forth, this person will show up in the dream, because the relationship that I had with them was really abusive in nature. So it's like a reoccurring dream. It's like a signpost, if you will, to, okay, hello, pay attention. You're not supposed to be doing this or thinking in this way. We need to move forward. That's one of the things that I love about dreams as well. It's not always about the person per se, but what they represent. In the past in your life, something that may be negative that's happening right now, so you can actually change that behavior. I love dreams.
Absolutely.
There's so much to talk about when it comes to dreams. I love that.
I know. I know. And this is why I don't like the idea that a dream comes always from our higher self, or some sort of message from the divine, because I think that's really selling dreams short.
Right.
Because dreams are much more complex than that, because they can show us where we're broken. They can show us our stuckness. They can show us our hang-ups. And they can do it in a very playful way that isn't such an affront to consciousness. But they really can open us up to where we need to grow. And that is spiritual, I believe. That's how I see, that's what I would call psycho-spirituality, is, how we're always kind of adapting and growing and moving into, a better role for life. But it doesn't necessarily come from on high. It comes from our own, existential concerns. That said, there are, of course, also these wonderful dreams that we get that open us up to non-duality, or ancestral figures, the deceased, mythological creatures, and that kind of level of bizarreness. And that's something else entirely. And I think that that's definitely, that's something else going on than what we've been talking about recently, and I'm open. I really try to stay open as a phenomenologist to what's happening. I don't have a theory about, what part of the brain, these creatures come from or whatever. I think the most important thing is to be ready and to be respectful. And of course, that's the best way to be in waking life as well, is to respect people who come to you, and have compassion and empathy. When you can do that in a dream, and you're facing some of these larger than life figures, you'll go a lot farther than if you kind of, react out of fear. Because, for instance, some of the nightmare figures that we might have.
And you're absolutely correct. And I think that's the most beautiful part. I love all dreams, but it's mind blowing. That's why I said, are we time travelers? Because there are things that I've seen on the dream time and my husband has seen, and we discuss our dreams, quite often. That's unreal. Some of this stuff I would never repeat, but it's just like, I've even had group dreams with my husband. I've been asleep and my husband has been there, vice versa. And we'll wake up and we'll just look at each other. And I'm like, I can't cope right now. I need to drink some water. And we just laugh.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
it's amazing. And speaking about that, I also am thinking, it reminds me of precognitive dreams, where people have dreams of the future and so on and so forth. Let's talk about this force. What is this force that literally touches people in the dream time, that gives them information about an event that could possibly happen, good, bad, and indifferent? Talk a little bit. About that.
I don't understand it. I have had some pretty interesting experiences with dreams. Not for me. I've had mutual dreams, I would say, that I can't understand. And one of the mutual dreams I had did have a precognitive element to it. And I can't explain it rationally. I've gone back and forth, and I'm like, no, I just can't explain this. Some of the more kind of sweet moments I've had is when with my son, who's now 2.5, but when he was maybe about a year ago, we shared a dream. And I know we shared the dream because I woke up from a dream, and he woke up, and he said 3 words that were just out of my dream. And he was there with me, and he just woke up and started telling me about his dream. Now, he doesn't do this now. When I talk to him and I ask him, hey, do you remember your dreams? He still doesn't quite get what I'm asking him. But if he wakes up spontaneously in the middle of the night and he's had an experience, he'll articulate it. And that's what happened this particular night, a year ago. And, in my dream, I was floating around. I was in California. I think I was on a cliff by the ocean. And I remember going down into the ocean waves, and then there was a boat, and I was on the boat, and there was a storm coming in. And I remember watching and waiting for the storm coming in while I was on my boat. And that was my dream. And I woke up, and at that exact moment, that's when my son said boat and water. And I was just like, it blew me away. And we were sleeping right next to each other. And so you wonder, sometimes people will have shared dreams and they're half a world away. Sometimes it's actually more likely to happen if you're in the same house. But I think more than a factor of distance, what people who have shared dreams is emotional closeness, emotional ties. So it's usually in the family, and it's usually or with very close family friends. And if you get into dreaming subcultures, subfamilies who talk about their dreams, they can tell you experience after experience if the whole family is open to it. If the family isn't open to it, that whole thing is shut down. So, these cultures it really comes down to the household level. I mean, honestly, about how open you are to even the possibility of having these kind of experiences.
Maybe the connection is the heart. I just read a quote recently, and I'm trying to remember who wrote the quote. It's some famous guru who said, when people that are in love, meaning a spouse, a family member, a friend, when we argue and we're standing in the same room, it's because the heart is far apart. And I thought about that, and I was like, wow, that's like really profound. So maybe the heart is a doorway to some phenomenon that pulls our consciousness and merges with other people. I mean, Einstein did say everything is energy. It looks different from our perspective. However, on an energetic level, energy does merge together. So maybe as one is sleeping, we're constantly merging with all of the energy around us, and you end up opening up a doorway. I mean, that's my own estimation, and I'm saying this off of a dream, by the way, that I have had many times with Albert Einstein, which he is not a part of the Fibonacci sequence, because at one point I was working and interviewing Marty Leeds, a wonderful author. He's a mathematician, and he does amazing things with numbers. And when I was connecting with him and Alan Green, the Sync book, I was having all these weird dreams about numbers and people, and I had a dream with Einstein, who was showing me how energy merges and things how they come together. So I know, Ryan, it's crazy, right? But maybe that's what it is. This phenomenon is just it's amazing.
I don't know what it is, but I mean, it's something's going on, and is it a power that we have, or is it just that time and space just are wibbly wobbly, that it just doesn't quite make sense? And there's times that in opportunities where that door opens, and we get a glimpse into the possible futures and the possible pasts. And I love, I think we forget to talk about the possible pasts, because so many people talk about, reincarnation dreams, for instance, or, dreams of past lives. And it's important to remember, well, that could have been a possible past, it didn't necessarily happen on this, linear level. Just like when we dream about the future, all kinds of stuff comes to pass, other stuff almost comes to pass. And so we dream, I think, that in potential. And, that's a very quantum physics way of looking at it. And I think that, when the physics kind of begins to clarify a little more, and when those guys get together with the neurologists and the neuroscientists, and they start to really look at the quantum effects in the brain, they're going to say, of course, this stuff is possible. And right now, it's just kind of, it's science fiction. But meanwhile, real people are having these experiences. And so, the important thing is to validate them. Like if you have a dream where, for instance, you dream about somebody getting hurt or something who's close to you, go with your gut and call them and tell them that you had the dream, and don't worry about what their reaction is. Let them worry about their reaction. I think getting the message out sometimes really is important. Now, if it's a dream about an ex-girlfriend or an ex-boyfriend or something, might not be the best, choice. But I mean, there is some discretion sometimes. You got to think about what else is going on. But if it's if it's a family member, take a look and see what's going on. You can really give somebody a heads up. And I know that since you've had Robert Moss on here, I'm sure he's told stories like that. He's seems to be just built for those kind of encounters. For most of us, it happens once or twice in our life. And so when you get that gut feeling, you got to move with it, you know?
And you do have to move with it, Ron. And it's interesting that you're saying that because we've been indoctrinated to perceive that doesn't exist, or we're crazy and things of this nature, which is very sad. It's like cutting off your spiritual software and who you really are as a human being. That's all a part of it. It's not just the mundane. There's so many unseen things that we don't understand that are coming to the forefront. And science is actually, through you, you wonderful researcher, you, and other people are really, they're bringing things up to the surface of this reality. That's very important to the whole, so you're absolutely correct. Why is it, Ryan, that some people they'll say, well, I never dreamed. Well, we know that that's not the truth. They just don't remember it. Why is it that some people are more prone to remember everything, and other people are not?
Mm-hmm. Well, it could just be a factor of how light or a heavy sleeper they are. If you wake up a lot in the middle of the night, you tend to have parts of the brain that are more active, that stay more active than others, and you tend to remember more dreams. I think it was even a recent study that was showing that if you have activity in your frontal lobe, which is where a lot of that kind of consciousness, motivation, those kind of, cognition things happen. If it's more active, that person tends to remember more dreams than, compared to those who don't have that activity level. And so it could be just the way that we're individually wired, but there's flexibility, because you can learn to remember more dreams. And part of it is that we've been taught basically not to remember dreams. And so there's quite a lot of us that could easily remember more if we just tried. And so there's definitely the cultural piece. And women seem to be more, I don't know, they don't necessarily remember more dreams. Actually, some of the studies have gone pretty back and forth about that. But women are more likely to talk about their dreams and share their dreams. And so they, and part of that's, I'm sure, cultural as well. Because when you're dealing with dreams, you're dealing a lot of times with emotions. You're dealing with emotional health and all kinds of stuff that men are, enculturated to not pay attention to say the least, or to actively avoid. So I think it's an uphill battle, for a man to become a dreamer. But once you make the step, it's easy, for most of us. And there are a few people who say they've never remembered a dream since a certain age. They do dream, they just forget it. And what I found about those people is they often have a sort of piece of pride that they don't remember a dream, and they kind of want to be proved wrong, you know what I mean? And so there's a piece of them that doesn't want to remember dreams because that's like kind of important to them. Once a person opens up to remembering dreams, it's usually easier. And the number one thing to do is to take a pen and take a notebook and have it by your bed. And when you wake up, recall anything that you can, even if it's just a feeling, an emotion, or even a color, is to write it down. And don't sweat it, and just keep doing that. And review your notebook before you go to bed. Let it be the last thing you think about at night, and let it be the first thing you see when you wake up in the morning, or in the middle of the night as well. And so that's really the way to kind of get things going. And there's actually some pretty cool, apps that make it easier now. I've been doing some consulting with Shadow. You can find their stuff at discovershadow.com. They have an app for the iPhone right now where you can record your dream and keep it private or share it with people. And there's other apps as well that are making it kind of easier, because all of us more or less have our smartphones kind of next to us. Might as well put them to use, rather than just watching Netflix on them before we go to bed.
Absolutely. Indeed. Hear, hear. I agree with you about that. There's so much to know when it comes to who we are, awaking and asleep. And family, go back into the H20 Network archives, because me and Ryan have met many times and talked in depth about dreams, but I really want to talk about this second book that's coming out, and you have some writings that are coming out to the forefront. And I don't know about y'all, family, but I am a nerdy girl when it comes to all the research. It's just I find it so fascinating with all the research that's coming out, from the dream researchers to neurology, also DMT, anything that opens up your consciousness in your brain to help you figure things out, see different things, I'm into. So talk about number 1, part 2 of Dream Like a Boss, and also your writings that are coming out.
Great. Yeah. So Dream Like a Boss book 2 is coming out as an ebook probably in October 2014. And if you go to dreamstudies.org, I will definitely be talking about it as it comes down the line. And it kind of focuses, it's a continuation, of course, of book 1 of Dream Like a Boss, but it focuses on extraordinary dreams. And so I basically talk about ancestral dreams, psychic dreams, eco dreams, dreaming about the earth, as well as what I call the Borderlands of Consciousness, such as sleep paralysis, nightmares, and night terrors, and hypnagogia, and false awakenings, those dreams when you think you're awake and you brush your teeth and get ready for work and then realize 15 minutes into the dream that you're dreaming and that the whole thing actually is a dream.
Ooh,
And so
I've never had
about
that.
Lucky you.
That sounds scary. I've actually heard of that, but wow.
Yeah, it's a thing. So, so I really kind of focus on those borderlands where you've got a mixture of the waking world and the sleep world. And some of those are nightmarish, but all of them, once you kind of basically learn how to ground yourself and realize what you're dealing with, you can sort of turn it towards some really extraordinary experiences. And the last piece of the book is an introduction into lucid dreaming and, how to be conscious or more conscious that you're dreaming in the dream, and just different issues about that and different methods of getting into it. I've written a whole other book on lucid dreaming before, so I didn't go into it as great as depth with this one. It was more just a very quick intro, but it talks about the most, the methods that are the best for it, as well as the perspective of kind of like Dream Like a Boss about why you need a container, why you need to go into this with a ritual focus that you take seriously, because you'll have better luck with it actually having success. The motivation will stay higher and whatnot. So that's Dream Like a Boss, book 2. I'm excited about it. It's been content I've been playing around with actually for 5 years as it evolves, because a lot of it started off as blog posts, and it's just kind of like finally getting into, and so it's really been refined. And I guess if I can show off, I just published this with my co-author, Kelly Bulkley, and it's a 2-volume set on lucid dreaming with
Lovely.
30 different chapters. And here's the second volume. They did a great job on the covers.
Wow.
And so it covers the science. It covers science to shamanism. It's culture, religion, science, induction, education, anthropology, clinical psychology. I have a chapter on dreaming as the Paleolithic mind, as kind of accessing ancient ways, just because we are dealing with some of the same things that our ancestors dealt with. But we're now in a modern environment. But a lot of our dreams and strange experiences are the same, and it's just kind of a fun idea to play with. So this anthology was sort of 4 years in the making, and it finally got published this summer. And it's It's expensive, and I'm telling people that if you're really into lucid dreaming, you should check it out. Otherwise, you should tell your local librarian about it, and get your local librarian to buy it, because I would love to see these things in libraries.
Oh my gosh, that is fabulous. The artwork is wonderful.
They did a great job. Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. I have to say the outer is beautiful, and I know what's inside is beautiful as well.
It's incredible, I have to say, because there's 30 chapters. I only have one chapter in it. It's all these different researchers, including Stephen LaBerge and some of the old school lucid dreaming researchers. But most people, besides talking about their research and what they've been doing, they included personal lucid dreams as well. And so it's got an element of the personal and, the research kind of together, which I really, is a fun mix.
It is a fun mix. I mean, I know you guys are the brainiac superstars, but we want to, it's fascinating to hear your stories, because you guys are such awesome storytellers about your own experiences, along melded in with the theory and the anthropology and the cultural. I love all that. And I think that if you're really trying to find out, I don't know if I want to call it a craft, but it is a craft. It's an art to dreaming and to finding out information. And I'm talking about at the higher levels. You want as much information as you can possibly get from the experts in that field across many different disciplines. So I thank you for that. I'm excited about your workings that are coming out.
Thanks. So it's really nice to see it finally kind of come out and being able to talk about it. I had to keep it kind of under wraps for a long time, so some exciting stuff.
Well, I'm just throwing it out there. I always throw a bone out there to not embarrass my guests, but you guys are such brainiacs doing all kinds of research and meeting with people. Has anyone in the field ever talked about a lucid dreaming conference? I know that there are many consciousness conferences, but it would be awesome to have a lucid dreaming conference with all of the people who are in the field.
Oh, yeah. There was one in California maybe 2 years ago, but, Gateway of the Mind does a conference every year, and they are in Europe, mostly in Ireland and London, and they kind of go back and forth to a couple of locations in the UK. But they are pulling together lucid dreamers, out-of-body experience, and shamanic dream practitioners. And so it's a pretty heady brew. And I keep waiting for them to open up something in the States, but it hasn't happened yet. And other than that, the International Association for the Study of Dreams has a yearly conference, and it's usually in the U.S., and there's so much going on, and there's always at least a dozen lucid dreaming, talks going on at that conference. And so that's really kind of the biggest meeting of the mind right now.
Well, I would love for dreamers and just researchers to come together. There's so much percolating on the burner, and I don't even know how to put it because I'm looking at it from a shamanic aspect. I've spoken to many different people from across the globe who are shamans, dream shamans in the waking world. And what is going on in the dream time is so fascinating. There's a lot of things moving around and things that aren't really being talked about and being seen. It's getting really interesting. So, actually, let's talk about this before we go. Time goes by so fast when I'm with you.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, it does. It's almost been an hour.
I know, but I do have to ask you, and we should do at some later on down the line, because I know you're so busy, have a shamanic conversation about dreaming, because there are some things going on in the dream time that are just really extraordinary. Has the dreamscape changed for you? Because the energy that's in this real world of reality is getting real heavy. There's a lot of stuff percolating and going on. What is the dream time like for you? Have you seen changes and a lot of weirdness, more than usual?
You know, I wasn't having a lot of dreams until about May of this year. And then I started dreaming off of the hook. And I've been assuming that it has to do with my diet change. I changed my diet. And it was pretty remarkable to see how my dreams changed. I basically went to kind of like a primal or a paleo-esque diet. I cut out a lot of dairy and a lot of grains, and most of the processed stuff along with that. And it was one of the things that happened is that my dreams came back. So I don't know if it was that or if it's some larger patterns going on, but I have had my own collective dreams of late, and you know, I'm definitely sensitive to that there's things going on, and I know people in the field who have worked with shamans, and there's a lot of shamans out there who are giving teachings and opening up in a way that they haven't done in the past. And part of that is because many of them are so scared that they're going to lose their knowledge because the young people aren't learning, they're leaving. And they're losing their languages, and this is happening at a rapid rate. It's been happening over the last 50 years, and so you're seeing kind of almost a desperation happening in the indigenous communities around the world about needing to give people information. And a lot of people who didn't want to used to talk to, the great white, industrialized nations are now trying to say, no, actually, you guys need to listen, and making statements, and it's pretty provocative what they have to say. It is an interesting time.
Yeah, it is, and I think down the line we should do that. We should have a shamanistic, different level conversation, because we've had many different levels about talking about dreams in your research. But we should have a higher conversation because there are many things going on.
I would love that, because I would love to learn from you, really, because a lot of, I'm not in contact myself with any indigenous people right now. I hear from other people about things that are going on. So it would be educational for me too.
Well, I love your knowledge and your research, and I so thank you. I'm excited. Time goes by so fast when I speak to people like you, because this is such a fascinating topic. As Anthony Peake would say, we could literally do a 24-hour broadcast of all the subjects and the little details of our consciousness and dreaming and so on and so forth. I'm excited for you with Dream Like a Boss 2 and this huge Lucid Dreaming Volume 1 and 2 that just came out. Tell the family where you are so they can connect with you, because I know that people talk about their dreams and you give juicy. I love your subscription on your website and your newsletter. Family, make sure that you sign up for these things. So tell the family where you are so they can get in contact with you, Ryan.
Right. Yeah, the website is dreamstudies.org, and that's my main blog. And I'm about to launch, actually, dreamstudies.com, which is going to cover most of the publishing of my ebooks and some of the recommended products and whatnot in the sleep and dream space. But the blog is still dreamstudies.org.
Awesome, family. I'm signed up. I love getting Ryan's newsletters. When I tell you, it is a plethora of information that you wouldn't even think about when it comes to dream research, or that may have not crossed your mind. You're like, wow, this is really cool. You get a lot of cool, juicy things on Ryan's website. So make sure that you connect with him. Also connect with him on Facebook, because he's hanging out and having tons of conversations. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. You're a dad, and you're doing your thing. I'm so grateful that you decided to spend time with me and the rest of the family this afternoon. Thanks for sitting around the campfire.
It's been great. Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. And until next time, family, bye-bye. Bye, Ryan.
See ya. Good night.